All right, welcome my friends. Happy Monday to all of you out there. I hope you're having a great Monday so far. My name is Justin Stellman, and this is episode 626 of Extreme Health Radio. Thanks for joining us. We've got a great show and a great guest for you today who I will introduce in just a moment. But before that, I wanted to let you guys know of some upcoming shows that we have. A lot of cool stuff happening on our radio show. So we're doing shows 2 days a week on Mondays and Fridays. And sometimes we'll throw in the odd occasional Wednesday show. So today we got Dr. Stephen Cabral. We'll introduce him in just a sec. Then on Wednesday, we have a rescheduling of Ken Rolla. He's going to be talking about EMF, 5G mitigation, how to structure your life so that all of this 5G stuff doesn't affect you as much as it seems to be affecting people's biology. So that will be on Wednesday at 10:45 a.m. Pacific time. And then on Friday, if you know any women who may need help with their hormones, anything like that, we're going to talk about healing your metabolism, your thyroid, and all that good stuff with Kate Deering. So that's on Friday at 10:45 a.m. Pacific time. So if you're new to our show and don't know what we do, if you're listening on iTunes or Stitcher, make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, Facebook, anywhere else like that, so you don't miss any of the cool shows that we have coming up. So today we've got a really cool show with Dr. Stephen Cabral, and he is a functional medicine practitioner, a doctorate of functional medicine practitionery, and a certified Ayurvedic practitioner. And he works with a lot of people on digestion, immunity, energy, metabolism, hormones, anxiety, sleep, pain, children, anti-aging, weight loss, skin conditions, and autism. And so he's kind of a well-rounded guy, and we got introduced to him through the internet, through the magic and the power of the internet. We stumble across these really cool people doing awesome things out there in the world. So we're super excited to have Dr. Cabral on the show. Doc, thanks for joining us, my friend.
It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you very much for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. It's our pleasure. So I think we stumbled across you on some of your YouTube videos, and it looks like you're doing some really cool work with people. And how long have you been in practice?
I've been in practice in the health and fitness industry since the late 90s, officially in 2000, and then in the functional medicine world for about a decade. So we've had the pleasure of working with over about 250,000 people, specializing in personalized lab testing. So what we do is we look at people's insides, so the stuff that you can't see, and actually find out, a lot of these things that people are guessing at, whether they have environmental-based toxins in their body, Candida overgrowth, H. pylori, parasites, hormone deficiencies, omega-3 versus omega-6. So basically what we do is we take a look inside the body, see what is balanced and what isn't balanced. And if it's unbalanced, we go in and we actually give people what they need through whole food diets or supplementation to make sure that they are balanced and healthy.
So what is functional medicine? That's something that's part of your bio here. And I know a lot of people talk about what exactly is functional medicine?
So my formal training is a doctor of naturopathy, but after that, you essentially specialize in what you want to practice. And so what I did was I did a lot of my internships overseas. I studied in India and Sri Lanka and China and Europe, and I studied bioregulatory medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, traditional Chinese medicine. What I look to do is create an integrative health-based practice. So I look at all forms of medicine as no one form is better than another. And then I combine those ancient modalities with state-of-the-art functional medicine. State-of-the-art functional medicine would be using at-home lab tests such as an organic acids test, IgG food sensitivity test, hormone testing, and we combine them. So what we do is we use the lifestyle-based practices and some of the herbalism of the Eastern-based modalities, and then we use the state-of-the-art orthomolecular and functional medicine testing for the vitamins, nutrients, and the lab tests people can do right at home.
Interesting. So what are you seeing as like a trend? Are you noticing any trends in the last, say, 5 years? Because our environment's changing so dramatically with 5G and all kinds of other things going on. Are you noticing some trends for people coming in to see you?
Absolutely. And so what we're seeing right now is more than ever, people being really depleted of their mineral levels, not just their vitamin levels. So a lot of people say, okay, my vitamin levels could be a little bit better, but to be honest, vitamins matter to a very strong and large degree, but minerals are what allow for that electricity of the body, the energy of the body. And we see this dramatically depleted. 5G is a bigger factor, but if we look at it, we even step back, since the 1940s and 1950s, as we really started to usher in this industrialized revolution, our soil has been depleted, even for organic-based foods, anywhere between 16% and 74% for most foods out there. So for me, it's getting people to understand that we use something called the de-stress protocol. It's diet, exercise, stress reduction, toxin removal, rest, emotional balance, supplements, and success mindset. So it's 8 parts. It's a lot. But I wanted to say that because supplements is only one part of it. But what we have to do is we have to look at, it's so difficult now to even eat a healthy, organic diet and get all the vitamins and minerals you need on a daily basis to be able to keep up with then the heavy metals, the 5G, the stress from everyday life. So what we're seeing is people very depleted and not able to keep up with the onslaught of everyday toxins such as 5G.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was reading something recently where it said that since the early, I think it was the early 1960s, there's been the inclusion of over 60,000 new chemicals that have been introduced into our environment since the early 1960s, and God only knows how many chemicals were around before that. It's got to be hundreds of thousands, right?
It's unbelievable. And so the thing is that one of the biggest takeaways that I picked up being overseas and studying all different forms of medicine is that every single one of those forms had detoxification as their cornerstone. Ayurveda had panchakarma. If you look at Greek medicine and a lot of other forms of medicine, even back then, they did longer forms of fasting. They did different herbals. But that was before just like you said, 77,000 is the minimum now they have in the United States. The World Health Organization says it's probably now closer to 100,000 man-made chemicals because they don't even know every single carcinogen that's been created since that time. So what we're dealing with is just a constant filling up of toxicity with our body. Now, keep in mind, there's no doubt about it that our liver and kidneys and lungs are doing their job to push things out through the skin and our breath and through the bowels, but it's a tall order. It's a tall order to ask on a daily basis for our body to keep up. And we need nutrients in order to be able to do that.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I was just listening to something recently where the presenter was talking about minerals in the same way you are. And he was saying that, the guest was asking him, how do we get so depleted in minerals, and he was saying, like, for example, just for your brain to have a thought, you deplete your phosphorus mineral. Like you delete or you diminish phosphorus just by having a thought in your head, which is crazy, right? It's nuts.
It is. And the probably crazier thing is that when we look at it, our body will start to draw from its stores. So it will start to break down muscle tissue or bone or organ tissue, whatever it needs, in order to take care of that process at the moment. So that's why I'm so big on just making sure that people have their reserves. So we look at people being unwell or overweight or aging at a faster rate for 2 main reasons. One is they could either have some type of toxicity, and most people do, whether it's gut-based or hormonal or environmental, and then there's some type of deficiency. So people are imbalanced for multiple ways, but typically it's too much of something, toxicity, too little of something, deficiency, and the body will do whatever it needs to do to create what's called dynamic equilibrium. So that means every moment of every day, our body is never static. It's always balancing out. We breathe in oxygen. Okay, that creates free radicals. And then we have to do this. So our body's always staying balanced, but it does that through a natural chemical storehouse inside of the body. And that is what we're always trying to just keep up with and stay balanced.
What are your thoughts about magnesium? Because in the research I've been doing lately, there's a huge role in magnesium, and people are saying that it's 100% that people are deficient in magnesium, and apparently it regulates over 42% of our 9,000 enzymes in our body. It's like 3,700 enzymatic functions happen as a result of magnesium, and it seems like people focus on other minerals, and although they're all important, but it seems like magnesium is such a big one, isn't it?
Without a doubt. And if you could pick one, that would be it. I mean, we see 9 out of 10 people we'll run something called the hair tissue mineral analysis. There are multiple ways to run this, but we look at that, we say, okay, yeah, 9 out of 10 people are going to be deficient in it. And if you look at a few others, you're looking at zinc as a close second. And again, this is at a functional level. If you were to run your blood work with your PCP, magnesium's going to look normal. Same with calcium, same with your potassium, same with sodium, and same with your zinc, unless you know to look at alkaline phosphatase for zinc, and you know that below a 60 is actually functionally deficient. So that's why we can't rely on our MDs and PCPs to give us health-based advice. They can give us sick and disease-based advice, but we always have to remember that it's our integrative health practitioners, our health coaches, our functional medicine doctors, naturopathic doctors that we should be looking at to stay healthy and get healthy, rather than just be disease-free, which is not the definition of health.
Yeah, it's like the RDA amount of vitamin C is just enough to keep you alive, but it's not for optimal, right? I mean, it's kind of hilarious.
Right, so without a doubt, yes.
When they're doing
scurvy, that's about it.
Yeah, right. It's crazy. So when they're looking at these mineral levels in the body, if you do a test through just a conventional doctor, I mean, they're not even looking in the right places. Aren't they just looking at the serum and not looking at the intracellular magnesium levels? And they're kind of messing up everywhere, right?
That's correct. Exactly. And they're really just running for disease. So you have to understand, like, when you go to your primary care, it's not that they don't want to help you with this. It's just that's not their training. When I was studying functional medicine, many of the doctors there were MDs, and they were actually doing their postdoctoral work in functional medicine, which is great to see. But you'll never get those results on a simple blood test, because that's not even really where you want to look. Meaning, one of the best places to look at hormones is saliva. The best place to look at waste-based matter is either urine to see what was used, or stool to see if there's parasites or H. pylori. But you can't do everything with the blood, and the blood is great to look at it, but it's not the end-all be-all.
Yeah. There's a lot of factors going on, right? Like you just mentioned, there's parasites, heavy metals. It seems to me that, if you focus on the minerals that are going to move the needle the most, it would probably be magnesium. And then if you're able to eliminate, or at least you probably can't eliminate parasites altogether, can you? But that would be somewhere to start too, wouldn't it?
It's a great place to start, but if we were looking at the average person, I would say magnesium would be one of the cornerstones. And the reason is that so many people today are stressed. They're stressed because of either GI issues with digestion, viruses, or everyday work-life relationship stress. So when we look at that, we know that magnesium is the mineral that allows you to essentially block the sympathetic nervous system, or at least slow it down. And if we can slow down the sympathetic nervous system, we can allow our bodies to get out of fight or flight and move more towards the parasympathetic nervous system. And healing can really only take place when you're in that parasympathetic nervous system. So if you can't get into at least a nice deep sleep at night because you don't have enough magnesium-based stores to shift you out of the fight or flight and more into the rest and relax, that's an issue. So we absolutely, the majority of the people will be using some type of magnesium-based supplementation. And it's important, though, that's why you have to really look at functional medicine, orthomolecular medicine, which is simply the study of these vitamins and minerals, because you don't want to use magnesium oxide. Magnesium oxide is what they'll give you in a hospital as a laxative. You actually want the glycinate form, or the lysine form, or the citrate form that enables you to absorb that magnesium and not just cause loose stool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all this stuff is so fascinating, because I was just doing some research lately about Dr. Frederick Klenner, and a lot of people, because we have 1-year-old twin boys now, and so now I've been on top of the sort of autism vaccine sort of issue, and for years, but now that we have twins and things are changing rapidly here in California, I've been seeing more and more stuff. So I've been doing some more research, and it was interesting because Dr. Klenner, a lot of people will say if you don't get these shots for your children, you're leaving them at risk for measles, mumps, and all these types of things. And you look into the work of Dr. Klenner, and he was reversing these cases, even cases of severe polio in the 1940s, where people were in a coma because of this, with high-dose IV vitamin C therapy and UBI. And it's like, wow, you just don't hear about this kind of stuff. Vitamins and minerals are so powerful.
Hands down. And if you could just look at just a few, although you shouldn't have to choose just a few, you will do wonders for someone in a health-based practice, whether you're a health coach or a doctor, by using magnesium, zinc, picolinate's a great one, or citrate's fine. your B vitamins, B12, B6, folate for methylation-based issues, which can cause more inflammation, which can maybe leave children more susceptible to being injured by certain types of things in modern-based medicine. And then also vitamin C. And the reason why vitamin C is so powerful is the same reason as magnesium is so powerful. Vitamin C helps with other enzymatic processes, and it enables your detox system to work a better degree. So we talk a lot about glutathione and how it helps eliminate all these toxins from your body. Well, your body uses vitamin C as a recycler of glutathione and also enables you to push this out of your body at a faster rate. So I'm a huge advocate of your B vitamins, magnesium, zinc, vitamin C. They do wonders, and people should be getting them on a daily basis. Yes, from whole food, but most likely if you live in this modern day world, you probably need a little bit of support.
Yeah, probably is the optimal word there, right?
As in most likely and underlying. Yes.
I would say that too. So do you mess around yourself personally with, doing these IV vitamins and stuff like that? Do you ever do that?
I'm a little, so I'm a huge proponent of nutritional supplements. They help me get well. When I was 17 years old, I got extremely sick. That's how I got into this industry. Back then, it was the late 90s. Nobody had any idea about all this different testing. There was no real internet. We had dial-up AOL. So, I just read books, and because my doctors just diagnosed me at first with what's called an idiopathic illness, which means they have no idea what's wrong with me.
Yeah.
That's what it means. But after a couple of years, I got diagnosed with a host of issues. Addison's disease, so I could no longer produce cortisol. I had type 2 diabetes. I had rheumatoid arthritis. I had POTS. I had fibromyalgia, insomnia, all these different things. But lo and behold, these were all things I was then eventually medicated for. Still no answer except medication. And I met all of these brilliant, brilliant doctors that I ended up studying under and finally figuring out all the different things that were wrong with me, repaired my body, and I'm healthier now 20 plus years later than I've ever been in my life. I've been through it all. I've been through the IVs, been through all that. So I like those when the body needs a heroic dose. But for everyday use, your body does much better at a lower dose amount that you would take in basically if it was 100 years ago from good, healthy food. So I believe in a larger dose supplementation when the body needs a push to get it back into dynamic equilibrium. And then after that, I would prefer to maintain with a lower dose supplementation-based protocol.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of people now are talking about that same thing, and they're talking about, like, for example, vitamin D and taking it exogenously in a pill instead of getting it in the sun when the sun interacts with the cholesterol in your skin and making it that way. And people are saying now that, if you take it exogenously, it's basically a hormone, and it decouples the systems in your body that actually create it. So you're less likely to be able to create it yourself later on. And so it's interesting taking these supplements. I mean, you kind of have to know what you're doing a little bit, right?
Yes, and when in doubt, just go on the lower side and always use a functional medicine-based brand. I know I keep going back to that, but here's an example. If you were to take 5,000 IUs of vitamin D on a daily basis, most adults need around 4,000 to 5,000 IUs on a daily basis, which is about 35 IUs per pound of body weight. You're going to allow your body to reach between 50 and 70 nanograms per milliliter, which is what we're talking about for vitamin D. You want to be between the 50 and 70. Now on blood work, the range is 30 to 100. That doesn't mean that that's a healthy range. It just means that's the conventional medicine range. Healthy is between 50 and 70. Some people will say 50 to 80. Now, doctors, MDs will give you 50,000, 200,000 units at a time. What happens then is that your body actually becomes hypercalcemic. Because of the vitamin D, it draws calcium from the bones because it's such a huge dose. But your body was only meant to get, first of all, vitamin D3, not vitamin D2, which is the non-synthetic form. And that allows you then on a daily basis to get what you would get from the sun. The sun, you would actually get closer to about 10,000 IUs a day is what they estimate. And then another example of this is vitamin B12. So a lot of people say, well, I need my B12 for energy, for brain fog, etc. Great. But there's multiple types of B12. You can get it from cyanocobalamin, or you can get it from methylcobalamin. There are other variations, but those are the two most popular. Cyanocobalamin will be cobalamin, B12. connected to a cyanide molecule. Now, we don't want to put cyanide in our body, not to a larger degree. Sure, we'll get it from different foods, but not a lot. Yeah. Methyl just means the methylated form that our body can use. So it is important that you don't buy, I always say, don't buy your supplements in the same place you buy your toilet paper. They should be through your local functional medicine doctor, or, you know, with a reputable online company that you trust.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Do you think there's any room for context with some of this stuff? Because, you know, with the vitamin D thing, it's interesting because there's a lot of debate. Some people say you should never take it exogenously. Some people say you should, you know, it's okay to take a whole bunch, you know, and I know Dr. Mark Circus in Brazil, I think he's talked about doing 50,000 units as a you know, way to get you back on track. But like you said, it has implications for calcification. And I'm wondering, like, is there ever a time when, if someone's on death's door or something, where something like that might be applicable, I wonder?
Yes, absolutely. So when you are so far out of balance that you need that heroic push, IV, all of those things can absolutely be used. Like a Myers cocktail, which is vitamin C, magnesium, other items that you can add to that for your overall health. Like, let's just say you are very, very, very ill, very, very sick, or a lot of people, they like to do it before travel or after travel. It will boost the immune system. The problem is that we found over time by doing, they have studies, you know, 250,000 IUs of vitamin D, and they say, oh, vitamin D is bad for you. Well, vitamin D is bad for you when you use it like a drug. It's not meant to be a drug. It's meant to be a vitamin, which, like you just said, acts as a hormone as well in 300 plus processes in the body. So you want to get it natural. You always want to think about this. You know, even I'm a big advocate of vegetable juicing too, but, you know, would you eat 4 or 5, you know, bushels of celery at a time? Probably not, right? Yeah. And so that could accumulate nitrates in the body, could accumulate a lot of different things. And would you do that every day? Probably not. So I always go back to, is this natural? And if not, that's okay. That might be fine, but then should it be done over a longer period of time? Now I have to say one more thing about the vitamin D, and that's this, is that you have to take it exogenously. You just can't do it at high dosage. And the reason is this: we test everyone in our practice. Only about 3 out of 100 people, less than 3% of all people that we test, even in the summertime, have adequate vitamin D levels. So it's not a matter of if you should take it. I mean, I live in Boston, Massachusetts. You only get, the sun is only powerful enough end of May through early October to get actual vitamin D. So I don't have a choice. I mean, so am I going to have a lowered immune system? Am I going to have weight gain and poor sleep habits and all of that because I can't get my vitamin D from the sun? I could lay outside in a bathing suit right now, you know, and I'm not going to get a tan. I'm really not. So if I can't get a tan and you don't have a tan, you're not going to have adequate vitamin D. And we have dermatologists all over the world telling people to lather on sunscreen to prevent skin cancer when that same sunscreen contains chemicals that we know has been proven to cause cancer. So what are we really doing? I mean, like, that logic makes absolutely no sense if you look at the research. And also, you need vitamin D to prevent cancer in the first place. So if you're wearing sunscreen and you're afraid of the sun, you have low levels of vitamin D. You have to get it somewhere. So you either go in the sun or take some form or a vitamin D3 form of vitamin D, not at a high dose.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because it's my understanding that the longer you're in the sun, like I spend a lot of time in the sun, but I've been, you know, doing more work, you know, outside and doing my workouts outside and trying to be outside a little bit more than normal. But as your skin starts to, the pigment starts to turn more brown and you have more melanin in your skin, it's my understanding that it's kind of a snowball effect, because then you need more sun because of the pigment changing. Is that correct as well? So now it's like becomes this thing where you need more and more, kind
of. To a certain extent, you're correct. So, I mean, when we look at it, that's why, you know, the ratings as well is like, oh, okay, go outside for 15 minutes. That's how much sun you need. Well, for who? You know, someone from Norway or someone from, you know, Africa. Like the logic there doesn't make any sense. If you have dark skin, you might need 4+ hours of sun on a near daily basis, 4 or 5 days a week. You don't need it every day, but you do need it 3-4 days a week minimum. If you are someone with light hair, light skin, most likely, you know, just lighter pigmentation, less melanin in your skin, you might not only need 15 minutes before the skin starts to turn like a slight pink color. Now, you should never get a sunburn. I'm not recommending that. But it's the same thing as 8 glasses of water per day. I mean, that's for who? A 100-pound person, a 250-pound person? It does not make any sense. Now, we have to start out with something. So, people do want to get enough sun where their skin does start to not get burned, but a slight hue to it that says, okay, I've got enough sun for the day. Now let me either cover up or put on some type of natural sun-based block that contains maybe a zinc oxide non-nanoparticle rather than a harmful sunscreen.
Yeah, good stuff. We have a question in the chat from Miss Hill about magnesium, but I wanted to ask you, it's so interesting because we're just coming out of summer here in the Northern Hemisphere. And man, you go to the beach and every second person is putting on just slathering sunscreen on their children. And it's so fascinating because now, I don't know why it's more popular now, but that spray sunscreen, now everyone around that person has to breathe it in because it's like a spray. But what's going on? I mean, that's got to be one of the biggest sort of hoaxes out there, right? This idea that sunscreen with all those chemicals in it is somehow healthy for you. It's crazy.
It's completely insane. I mean, it really is. And then kids jump in the swimming pool, and then your kids swim in that swimming pool that's loaded with chlorine and chemicals, and talk about an easy transportation system right through your kid's skin. And we also know that most kids are drinking some of that water. So, I mean, this is unbelievably toxic to our children. So, and danger. I mean, it's flat out dangerous. Now, the problem is that dermatologists are not trying to do you harm. Your doctor's not trying to do you harm. And neither are these parents. They're trying to do the right thing. The problem is miseducation. It is this media-driven hype that you're going to get skin cancer if you're out in the sun, where skin cancer has to do with way more than just the sun exposure. It has to do with your own immune system. It has to do with the foods that you're putting in your body. What about the other 77,000 man-made chemicals in the environment? All of those interact. The sun is just one part to that. And if anything, the sun can actually help you boost your immune system and also improve detoxification through improving the sulfur-based pathways of your liver, which is so important. So again, it's just miseducation, which is why, the show you're doing and the experts you have on will hopefully share this information with other people. And that's the only way these things change is grassroots, because there's no way they're talking about this on your evening news.
That's so true. All right, got a cool question about magnesium here from Miss Hill in the chat room on YouTube. And she says here, is taking magnesium vitamins good, even if they're synthetic? That's a good question.
Synthetic's always a tough one, because essentially anything made by man is going to be synthetic. So it's a challenging one because you need to be able to absorb it. So I look at it as these are very beneficial products, but you don't want the synthetic toxic forms. So you don't want the magnesium oxide unless you're using it as a bowel cleanser, which even then I don't recommend. Or you don't use the cyanocobalamin. You don't use folic acid. I mean, how many women out there are being prescribed folic acid for pregnancy when at least 33% of all women have an MTHFR gene mutation, which means that folic acid builds up and becomes toxic in their system. They should be using a methylfolate or quadrifolic acid or a nature folate, anything that's methylated that they can then absorb. So synthetic, I'm someone that really looks at the research, and that's not going to be an issue man-made. The issue really is that the high dosages, like it would be for anything, but also, the fact that most food vitamins are made from yeast, and I don't technically really consider that a food either. And so I would look at it as, I think it's okay, and I get great benefits clinically from using a clean magnesium like a glycinate, lysine, or citrate are great forms.
Yeah, a form I've been kind of experimenting with is bicarbonate, making magnesium bicarbonate water and drinking that. And yeah, there's a lot of good forms. And so when you're doing tests on people, you'll test them again and you're getting some good results there?
That's all we do. We test before and afters, and we've been doing that now for a decade. And so we know it works. Like clinically, I can tell you for sure is like, okay, if you're deficient on omega-3s, like most people are, simply because they have too many omega-6s, we'll be able to rebalance that by doing this, and this, and then we can retest, and without a doubt, you'll be in the range. A lot of people don't know. If you optimize your omega-3s for a 9% saturation in the blood, you have a 90% risk reduction rate of sudden cardiac death, which is absolutely amazing. It's the #1 killer in the entire world. And we know that we can reduce it by 90%, even if you have high cholesterol, even if you have all these other calcification of the arteries, if your omega-3 levels are about 9%, which is about a 3-to-1 ratio for most people of omega-6s to omega-3s.
Wow,
so,
that's really, really cool. All right, stay there. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and then in terms of magnesium, there was a great book written called The Magnesium Miracle. You might have read that shows you all the different absorption rates. So we know that the best absorbed magnesium that's not going to build up in the system, but it's actually going to be taken into the red blood cells, is going to be glycinate, and then, like I said, the other forms as well, citrate, etc. Nothing wrong with the bicarbonate forms. It's actually quite alkalizing to water, which means that it allows for a little bit more buffer in the body. Now, I know that the blood will always maintain about a 7.356 pH, but it's a nice alkaline mineral for your body to use to buffer. What we don't recommend is the calcium carbonate, which can start to build up in the tissues and arteries unless magnesium is given along with it. That was always and that is a big thing today, is that women should never take calcium without magnesium, or the calcium will build up in the arteries.
Yeah, that's super, super important, right? Because I've heard that these minerals balance each other out. Like the magnesium will balance the calcium, and the copper will balance the iron levels and things. So it's really important. Like, a lot of women these days are taking just this rock calcium, right? And wondering why they're getting sicker. It's crazy.
Exactly right. And that's why, when in doubt, just use a simple full spectrum, like an activated multivitamin or something like that, so that it is balanced. So you don't have to worry about if you're getting its partner, like you just spoke about, copper to zinc or to iron, magnesium to calcium, sodium to potassium. If you go with a good company, a functional medicine company, they're going to already have done that for you. And then you can add the extras like magnesium on top of that if you need it.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. Stay right there, Doc. We're going to take a little bit of a break right now, and I hope you guys are enjoying the show. If you have any questions for Dr. Cabral, and you're on YouTube right now, ask them, and when we come back from the break, we'll try to read those from the chat room, but make sure to ask them in all caps. That way I can see the questions easily and they don't scroll by me. And we've opened up our Skype account, so if you guys want to actually call in, no guarantees this is going to work, but we'll give it a shot. And if you guys want to call in, our Skype number, or our Skype, our Skype, what do you call that? Handle is Extreme Health Radio. So feel free to do that, and we'll try to see if we can get you on the show and ask a question or two that way. All right, guys, stay right there. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Extreme Health Radio, and I hope you're enjoying this show. Please share it with your friends by tagging @Extreme Health Radio on Instagram. Stay tuned for new shows weekly.
Yeah, guys, make sure to check out our shows every single week on Mondays and Fridays live on YouTube, and you can check those out and join live, and that's always a good time, so make sure to do that. And Instagram is a fun way to connect with us. We're trying to do more and more on there on a daily basis, so if you guys want to follow what we have going on, our new shows, and just kind of what's going on with our family and our lives and stuff, it's always fun to have new people on Instagram. So one of the things I want to talk with you guys really quickly about and share with you are the benefits of Chaga mushroom, and check out what Daniel Vitalis has to say about that.
Of course, at Surthrival, we do dual extractions with our chaga, extracting the chaga both in an organic alcohol, but also in hot water to provide both the alcohol-soluble fraction.
Oh, whoops. Mr. Vitalis just stopped.
And the water-soluble fraction. Now, that water-soluble fraction really goes to work on modulating the immune system, and it does that in several ways. It certainly seems to educate, if you will, white blood cells on how to scavenge the blood better for pathogens and for cancer cells. It also seems to promote cancer cells killing themselves, so it promotes apoptosis in neoplastic tissues. It also slows the growth of neoplasty, which means it starts to slow down how quickly a tumor can grow. And then it's cytotoxic to cancer cells as well. So then it also poisons cancer cells while supporting the health of our healthy tissue. In addition to that, it also has some activity as an anti-diabetic, so it helps to lower blood glucose levels.
Yeah, Chaga is just an incredible, incredible substance. And if you guys want to support the work that we do, check out our store, biochargeme.com, and you can check out the Surthrival products. It's a dual extraction, which is really great. They have a dual extraction, which means they bring out the alcohol solvents and as well as the water constituents in there. And it's just really great for your immune system. And we can't make any claims. You know, we can't say that it'll reverse cancers or anything like that. It'll help to make you healthy. We'll just keep it at that. So Chaga is one of the cool substances that I take on a regular basis. And so next up, I want to tell you guys about our Magnetico mattress pad. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but what a cool device this is. Let me bring it up on the screen for you here, and you can take a look at it. But this is a really great device, and what I like about it is kind of a dual kind of reason for this thing, and that is that it helps to bathe your body in a magnetic field. And according to Dr. Dean Bonley, this helps the electrons spin faster and create more ATP in the mitochondria of your cells. But then also, the extra benefit of bathing in a magnetic field while you sleep is that it helps to protect from wireless radiation, dirty electricity in your walls, 5G, routers from your neighbors, all kinds of things like that. So sleeping on a Magnetico has been one of the things that Kate and I have been doing for a long, long time now. And check out what one of our previous guests, Jason Prawl, had to say about that.
I just heard those devices that you had during the break, by the way, and I actually want to add to that because that's really cool stuff. I actually have the Magnetico sleep pad myself. I've got the 20 Gauss. It actually is really important. And what's happening is with the Earth, according to research and some pretty good science, that the poles are actually wandering. Instead of being sort of perfectly aligned and opposite of each other, there's multiple poles on the north and south, and they're actually wandering around. And basically what that does is it decreases magnetism around the Earth, but it does so in an uneven way, in an undistributed way. So it's not exactly uniform around the planet. What's happening is we are getting extra solar energies coming to the Earth. So we're actually seeing like UVC is now increasing on the planet because of our magnetic field. Our magnetic shield is not as protective. So it's really interesting stuff what's happening as we're moving into new parts of the galaxy, and we're getting new energies and all this stuff is changing. So I actually have a Magnetico sleep pad.
Yeah, Jason Prawl is the author and the sort of creator of that really cool summit called the Human Longevity Project. And he's a cool guy. He's a local guy here. And yeah, I can't recommend the Magnetico enough. It's an amazing device. And if you have kids, you can get one for your kids or your dogs as well, which is what we love to do. And it's just, it's one of those things that I think it's really tremendous to sort of bolster and improve your environment. So if you're going to sleep for 8 hours a night, you might as well sleep on something that's going to regenerate your tissues and help detoxify heavy metals. I mean, the Magnetico, the research Dr. Bonley has done on that is pretty tremendous. So it's really, really cool. And if you guys want to take your health to the next level, check this out.
This is Extreme Health Radio, where we're 100% listener supported. Make sure to join the Extreme Health Academy with thousands of other listeners and get real solutions for your health challenges.
The Extreme Health Academy is a cool thing that we have going on. If you guys want to join and take your health to new levels, you can get a free 14-day trial at extremehealthacademy.com. And then if you use the code EHR14, it's really fun to connect with you guys in the chat rooms and in the forums there. I just love it. And, you know, a lot of listeners, thousands of people are in there, and the forums are sort of going crazy on a daily basis. So that's always a fun time to connect with you guys there. And, so let me bring up Dr. Cabral back on the show, and let me see, first of all, before, if there's any questions on YouTube. Okay, here's a good question. Let me actually turn his audio on so that I can hear him. Okay, Doc, we got a good question about vitamin K2. So here's a question from the chat room. Should you supplement vitamin K2 with vitamin D? That's a good question.
Absolutely, yes. So vitamin K2 is a product that will help with healthy blood clotting, but also it helps vitamin D, calcium, magnesium all work together to build nice, healthy, strong bones. So absolutely. And again, you don't need to know all of this yourself. You get yourself a good quality functional medicine and activated, which just means all those vitamins, like instead of getting K1, you're getting K2 and the other forms of natural vitamin K that will do its job. So absolutely, if you are going to use individual vitamins or minerals on top of your typical protocol. Just make sure you have one that's foundational, that you get all of these vitamins and minerals on a daily basis. And again, this is already assuming you're eating a good, healthy, whole food diet as well. It's not a substitute, it's an addition.
Yeah, good point. Good point. A lot of times people just think they can eat a vitamin depleting diet or a mineral depleting diet and then just take supplements. And it's kind of not the right way to think, right?
That's correct. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, cool. Well, there's a few more questions if you're open to taking some of these from the chat room. A lot of cool people are writing in. Okay, here we go. Let's see. Is Doc aware of his C60? Okay, yeah. So Keith wants to know about your opinion about that supplement C60. We've done a show on that, and that's that carbon 60 that allegedly is connected to longevity and detoxification and things. Are you familiar with that, and what are your thoughts are if you are?
I'm not familiar enough with the makeup of that as to how it works in the body for me to give you a good educated answer on that. One of our big specialties is on detoxification, phase 1, phase 2, and even phase 3, which has to do with the gut. But before we use any of the newer molecules, we'll call them, we are very careful about adding that to our practice. So for phase 1, we'll still stick with a lot of the vitamins and nutrients, such as selenium and vitamin E, vitamin C, vitamin D. And then in phase 2, which is the sulfur-based amino acids, taurine, glycine, glutathione, etc., we'll use things like sulforaphane. So that's an example. Sulforaphane is an extract of broccoli, or can be an extract of other cruciferous vegetables as well. That's amazing to ramp up phase 2 detox. So maybe in the future we'll get there. But in terms of like high dose nicotinamide riboside or high dose anything, we're not using it yet because we want to make sure that it's safe in human-based trials as well.
Good stuff. Yeah, we did a whole show. If you guys want to learn more about C60 and what it does, we did a whole show. I think it's on our YouTube channel. It might be on our podcast versions as well. All about the science and the structure and the shape and what those C60 molecules do. So if you guys are interested in that, you can learn more about the C60 molecule there if you go through on our YouTube channel. All right, so Stephen wants to know, what's the best way to detox heavy metals from the body, the brain, and preferably naturally? So this is a big one, right? Heavy metals.
Yeah, absolutely. And this was something we started diving into, again, about 10 years ago. And this is after a lot of research. We're just finding, not only through the research that we read, but the differences in clinical practice. We run the labs and we see people coming back. Almost everyone we test, as in more than 9 out of 10 people, have higher levels of aluminum than they should. And yes, mercury is a factor, arsenic's a factor, bromine, like there are other factors going on with toxins from the environment, but aluminum is the most pervasive. And that's because you have to think about it. We have aluminum in our mouth from the silver amalgams. Those have mercury in them. They have aluminum. We have aluminum, whether you're pro or con vaccination does not necessarily matter for this conversation, but just know that there's typically metals in those. Aluminum foil, aluminum pans and spatulas, there's aluminum in your water. So aluminum is the most pervasive metal out there. And what happens is, as you accumulate it over time, it can build up and affect the blood, the nervous system, your red blood cells. It's pro-inflammatory. It can affect the brain, potentially lead to dementia and Alzheimer's. It's certainly not going to help, even though we have pretty good correlations that it can help lead to that. So it's a big topic. And I believe that everyone on a yearly basis should be doing a heavy metal detox just to eliminate the natural accumulation. So the nice thing is that I agree. I don't think that we need to be doing heavy chelation-based methods. And again, there's always a time and place, unless you have very high levels of a heavy metal, such as a mercury, that needs to be gotten rid of the body quickly. And the reason for this is that really hardcore chelation-based therapies are going to take out a lot of your other minerals. So if you have to do it, you have to do it. And I understand that completely. Just make sure that you're loading up the good minerals back in your body afterwards. And that's when you want to use IV and continual exogenous forms to take in. So now how can we eliminate 90 to 93% of all heavy metals in the body within about a 6-week period of time? Great research on this. And I did a podcast, I did a show on this as well. And it's these 3 items: vitamin C, Craxel, chlorella, and it is cilantro. So we use all of those in supplement form because, again, you really need to be able to take it in the extract form so you get enough. And then we add one more. and that's a biofilm disruptor. I believe, and maybe you've already talked about it because I know you have 600 plus episodes of your show, which is amazing. You might have already talked about biofilm disruptors, but if people aren't familiar with them, this is one of those new frontiers, is that if you are not working on your biofilms, it's hard to really fully get rid of Candida overgrowth, parasites, SIBO, and a host of other issues. Now, when you have biofilms, your body uses those metals as a film over your yeast overgrowth, bacterial overgrowth, parasites in your gut. And it does that to make this almost like a hardened layer or shell. And if you're not using these enzymes to naturally degrade it, you can't get rid of all your heavy metals, and you certainly can't get rid of all the gut bugs there too. So we add a biofilm disruptor to an already proven natural-based modality.
Wow, that's interesting. So that's the first time I've ever heard. We've talked a lot about biofilms on the show. We did a really great interview with a lady in California, Amy Pearl, and she's done a lot of work with Lyme disease, and she works a lot with parasites and viruses and bacteria. And she talks about how these things communicate with each other, and there'll be like parasites and viruses that are inside a biofilm in one area of your body. And they're showing now some research in the University of San Diego that these viruses are actually communicating with other viruses that are trapped inside of other biofilms in other parts of the body. They're hijacking your nervous system to somehow communicate. And I don't know how she knows this or how they're even doing this, but man, there's just a lot going on. So this is the first time I've actually heard, though, that the actual shell could be made out of a heavy metal. That's fascinating.
The heavy metals are absolutely woven in there. So it's used as part of the structure. I mean, think of a biofilm as almost like a stack of hay. It's all these specific proteins and fibers woven together. And it's like a mucus layer. So it is mucousy, but it still has structure to it. And it does that as I call it a protective roof to the house. So when we're doing something like we call it the CBO protocol, but a Candida bacterial optimizing protocol, we used to say overgrowth, but we can't say that anymore.
Oh, really? Why can't you?
You can't use that language anymore. Just like you can't make claims on your Chaga, we can't make claims that we're getting rid of Candida and bacteria, even though we have the before and after labs to back it up.
Oh my!
But anyway, that's another topic. We just have to play the game. So what we do is we use these biofilm disruptors, and we use them for 60 days. And I mean, the mucus and everything that just comes out, because there's a lot of people doing Candida diets and they're doing Candida protocols, but they're missing the biofilm disruptor. And yes, it works for Lyme, and yes, it works for autism and other health-based issues, because so much of that has to do with the gut. So if you break down these biofilms, you are doing your body a tremendous service while also eliminating those heavy metals.
That's really fascinating. What are your thoughts about, you said that once a year someone should do like a heavy metal cleanse, and I'm of that same thinking as well, because in this age we've got, parasites are a real big issue, heavy metals are a real big issue, toxins and chemicals. So it seems to me that once a year we should be doing something, like, especially if you have animals or pets, we should be doing something to get rid of these things. And then also, you could do things on a daily basis. Like we like the saunas for helping to detoxify the body through the sweat glands and oscillating the fat cells to get, release those. But it seems like once a year would be good for these types of bigger sort of issues that people are having, right?
Exactly. Daily, just like I saw you jumping up and down on that rebounder, right? So you've got rebounding, you've got sauna, you've got your whole food diet, lots of cruciferous-based vegetables to ramp up that phase 2 detox, because most people are getting their vitamins. So those are great. And then what we typically say is every quarter, do a functional medicine detox, which is simply a liver-based detox to ramp up, and it also includes a couple days of fasting in there to allow your body not to have new things coming in while pushing out the old. I mean, that's one of the greatest secrets right now of longevity that's finally coming out, is that fasting is a big part of that, but you have to get the nutrients in with it. And then yearly, every culture around the world used to do a parasite. They called it deworming. We need to do our heavy metal, an intestinal cleanse just to get that stuff out of your body after a parasite is paramount. And then just do your quarterly detoxes. And that's why I tell people you should be worried about your health, but not scared. You should just be thinking about it on a daily basis, just giving your body what it needs nutrient-wise, but go about your daily living. You can't be stressed out about whether you're going to get sick. Just do the things that you need to do and enjoy life. I mean, that's really how it should be.
Yeah, I know, right? No, don't stress out too much, right? You do that, that's not good.
It's the worst thing that you can do, right? I mean, stress is more powerful than anything else. So the last thing that you should be doing is stressing.
I hear you. I hear you. All right, let's see if we got a couple more questions. So yeah, if you guys have any questions in the chat room, thanks for putting them in all caps. And if you want to call in, this will be a good test to see if our Skype will work. But if you guys want to call in during the show, it is Extreme Health Radio, all one word, lowercase, on Skype. So let me see here if I can find another question here for you. Sophia. Ooh. Oh, this is a good question. What can be done for a child who is in a chlorinated pool 4 times a week? That's a good question.
It is a good question. So what you want to do is you want to support the thyroid, because the thyroid is going to be most affected by chlorine. So chlorine is one of those things like fluoride and bromine that's part of what's called a halogen group. And a halogen group will deplete your body of one main mineral that you do need, which is iodine. And so if your child is swimming in a pool, besides the hair, skin, nails being affected, that's more like surface level, you want to make sure that they're getting in enough iodine and selenium in their diet. And I would say B vitamins as well, because they help for those transformations. So if you want to do it all food-based, nothing wrong with that. You want to take in enough seaweed-based vegetables or clean algae forms. That's a great way to get iodine. Or you can use a natural thyroid-based supplement that would contain selenium, iodine, and other cofactors. And if you wanted to get selenium separately, you can get that for Brazil nuts. So you could use nori crinkles, you could use seaweed snacks, you could use Brazil nuts, and or just, again, some iodine, and your daughter will be doing pretty well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of really crazy chemicals in those pools, right? Especially if they're public pools, they got to crank up the chlorine even higher, and that causes probably most definitely skin flora issues, I would imagine, right? Because there's bacteria on our skin, but then also, issues internally with all that chlorine. I mean, I hate getting out of those pools. You just stink for days, don't you? It's like,
without a doubt. And it does. I mean, your skin is porous, so you're going to absorb some of that chlorine no matter what. They're toxic. There's no doubt about it. But, you can understand why they do it, because if you look at the flip side, if you were swimming in a pool without any antibacterial, you'd be even more sick. So it's one of those things. But if you can, what we did for our daughters, and it's not everywhere, but in Boston they actually have some salt water based pools that also use ozone to kill bacteria rather than just pump in all that chlorine.
Smart people. Smart. I like that. That's good. All right. So another question here. This one's from Mitt 2008. Would magnesium chloride brine oil, basically magnesium oil, topically be a good form of magnesium to use?
We've seen that be hit or miss in our practice for sure. So even though children could take a supplement form of it, you can definitely use it on the skin for both adults and children. Some people are very sensitive to the magnesium chloride form, and the reason is that chloride is 1/2 of salt, essentially. Sodium chloride, which is HCl, and hydrogen chloride, and the Cl is the chloride. So magnesium chloride can burn a little bit on the skin. That doesn't mean that I don't recommend it. What I'm saying is just go easy the first time, dilute it with a little bit of water if needed, especially if you're using it for a child. And then you'll want to give a more days than not dosage. And to see if it's working for you, you'll simply want to retest in 6 weeks or 12 weeks to make sure if the dosage is giving you enough of what you need. So that's always how I recommend, but it could be a very good form.
Yeah, magnesium chloride is something I've been using more, just learning more about it, and just understanding how vital it is for our bodies. If you guys are interested, we did a show with Dr. Carolyn Dean, who was the author of the book, Doc, that you mentioned. I think the Magnesium Miracle. I think that's the name of the book. Ooh. And yes. That one's in our archive if you want to learn more about magnesium and what it does. Let's see. Kind of going through, got some good questions. Here we go. Giselle or Gristle wants to know, is liquid chlorophyll a good source of magnesium? Liquid chlorophyll. That's interesting.
Not a good source of magnesium per se, because you're using magnesium for a clinical benefit, like dosage wise, because we could go through a lot of foods and nuts and things like that are great for magnesium. But if what we're looking to do is refill our stores or kick us out of the fight or flight, it has to be a dosage of at least 120 to 230 milligrams at a time, or I haven't seen much clinical benefit besides that. Challenging to get that much in just a food-based source without a lot of the other maybe calcium that would balance out that magnesium that we don't necessarily want, right? We want the straight magnesium in order to, again, balance the fight or flight. Liquid chlorophyll can have its own benefits, which is oxygenating the tissues, helping to rebuild red blood cells. But I don't think that I would use it specifically to get my magnesium.
Okay, good stuff. So let's see what else we got here. Callie's in the chat room, says hello. Hello, Callie. Thanks for being here today. Angie wants to know, does he like silica for metal detox? I've heard it has helped some with Alzheimer's diseases in some small studies.
I don't use silica as a main detoxifier. I do like it, absolutely, as part of it. Just like I like, a lot of people are big on zeolites. I think they're great as well. I really do. The difference is, though, that they're good at binding, grabbing onto and binding. You still need to ramp up phase 1 and phase 2. So I like zeolites. I like silica. I like bentonite clay. I like different things like that. But we have to just keep in mind that those are great grabbers, and we also need something that ramps up phase 1 and phase 2. I know I've mentioned a bunch of times. You probably talked about it on your podcast, but basically, like, let's say we're oxidizing adipose tissue, body fat, and from that comes a lot of stored toxins. Like, it could be estrogens, it could be heavy metals, etc., plastics, PCBs, triclosan, and now it's in the blood. And what your liver does, this big organ under the right side of your rib cage, is it takes all of the blood every 6 minutes and it filters it through thousands of tubes, bile ducts inside of your liver. And it takes these fat-soluble toxins and it breaks them down to something water-soluble. That could now be eliminated in your urine, your stool, through your lungs, or through your skin. And so we need to make sure that that liver is always working to its full potential. Nothing else matters too much if that's not working properly.
Good stuff. Brett in the chat room wants to know about magnesium threonate and your thoughts on that. And it's interesting because I've heard recently that magnesium threonate is one of the only forms of magnesium that actually crosses the blood-brain barrier. But then I heard recently that most forms will cross the blood-brain barrier, and that's not actually true. A lot of the forms will. So I'm wondering about your thoughts about magnesium threonate, at least Brett is.
Yeah, I think it's a very valid and great form as well. But for sure, for my research and also just in clinical practice, I can tell you that other forms the percentages will just vary. And again, that I think the book Magnesium Miracle is a very good book. I've done a whole podcast on exactly what forms and how absorbable they are and how they're broken down by the body. We can talk about that as well. But great form. There are other good forms as well, not the only form. It's kind of like in natural medicine. Sometimes like my form of supplement can beat up your form of supplement, and it's there are many good forms out there.
Right. So what are your thoughts about people that have come and see you? What are you seeing as something that's very challenging for you to overcome, to help people overcome? I know a lot of people with Lyme, that's a really challenging thing. Rheumatoid arthritis seems to be really challenging as well. What are some of the more challenging issues that you're sort of working with, do you think, these days?
Well, the most challenging issues are not the Lyme or the rheumatoid arthritis. They are, don't get me wrong. But what happens is we see people after they've done all the drugs, meaning the doxycycline for Lyme and the Remicade and everything for rheumatoid arthritis. So if they were to come in for the thing initially, not that difficult. I'm not saying it's easy, but not that difficult. What we see, though, you use doxycycline and you use these powerful chemo-based biological drugs, and now we actually have to rebuild your red blood cells, and we need to rebuild your mitochondria, and that takes months. So what I tell people is that the drugs will kill the bacteria and these types of things. However, you are poisoning the body at the same time. And if you eliminate the mitochondria, you end up with what's called myalgic encephalitis. And it is not the Lyme you have anymore that's causing you issues, or the RA or whatever it might be. RA is a little different because it's autoimmune based. What you're actually suffering from is now maybe 100 mitochondria per cell rather than 1,000. And when you don't have the energy powerhouses, you can take all of the NAD or take all of the whatever it is that you're using to boost those up, but you need to wait the 3 to 4 months for the next red blood cell crop to come along with more mitochondria, and then another 3 to 4 months. So what we do is we tell people, listen, we're not going to give you a timeline, but we're going to rebuild your body every 3 to 4 months, and you will get well. It's just going to take a little bit of time because of these very powerful drugs that knocked out, a big part of your body.
Yeah, it's probably similar to when people try to do a natural cancer therapy after they go through the ravages of chemo, radiation, surgery, and then they blame the natural cancer therapy for not being able to, not just not overcome the cancer, but have to overcome the damage that the chemo caused in the first place, then get to a place where they can overcome the cancer. And then obviously the natural side always gets blamed, right? That's always the sort of thing that happens, you know?
Exactly. And that's because they're not, I want to tell people, like, listen, they're not drugs. It's not supposed to fix you the moment you take it. You know, if you take ibuprofen and you take 800 milligrams, and I'm not saying you should do that, you typically will feel pain-free within an hour or so. That's not how natural health and natural medicine works. Now, the nice thing is, with natural health and natural medicine, you work at the underlying root causes so that you have a lifetime of being pain-free rather than just a couple hours before you have to take your next dosage. It just takes some time.
Yeah, that's the thing. It takes time. And, you know, what's interesting, though, is with the mitochondria, I was reading recently that, you know, per cell, there's anywhere from 3,000 to 10,000 little mitochondria per cell. And I think the heart and the brain have upwards of close to 10,000 per cell. But then it's crazy if you think about, like, there's 30 trillion cells. I can't even do the math on that. I mean, how much mitochondria would that be, you know?
No, and you're right. And they vary. So the heart will have more. And that's why, like, coenzyme Q10 is much more benefit. I mean, it works great for cardiac muscle, works great for the rest of your body. But, you know, ubiquinol for the heart is number one. Like, that's one of the big ones. There's PQQ. There's all sorts of great things. But you're right. It varies per cell. And there should be a good 1,000 healthy mitochondria and upwards. And when people take these drugs, not only do they knock down their red blood cells, so there's less red blood cells to even have mitochondria or tissue, but they have less of the mitochondria in each of those cells. And that, I mean, if you don't have the energy generators that create energy, it's hard, even if the other ones are working at max capacity.
Yeah. So I wonder, is there a connection? Because with mitochondria, like I was reading recently where, you know, people get really afraid of the genes people have, like, oh, I've got the BRCA1 gene, so I'll get preemptive breast extractions and, you know, things like that. Angelina Jolie doing that. And, you know, but then I'm learning too that it's the mitochondria that controls the genetic expression in combination with the environment you're living in, internal, external environment. And so then I start thinking, okay, we should focus on the mitochondrial health, right? That makes the most sense, because if that controls genetic expression, you want to start a little bit higher up. And so it's interesting. I wonder if it's just the combination or the connection with the ATP that the mitochondria make that regulates genetic expression, or is there something else? Because like you said, if we don't have the energy, then with all the other stresses we're bombarded with on a daily basis, where do we come up with that energy to overcome a tumor that might be growing out of control, you know?
It's multifactorial. I really believe that. I mean, genetics are not your destiny. I know that I'm not the first person to say that, but I personally would never do anything preemptively, because whatever you do preemptively, such as a surgery, has its own side effects.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you're going to create scar tissue, and you're going to create now a lack of blood flow. I don't think that that's necessarily the best thing. And then also, most women who have, the surgery to prevent breast cancer, and there are multiple ways to do that. That's why there's not just one surgery that I'm going to name. What happens is they oftentimes get some type of breast augmentation, and now that could cause its own host of issues. So we have to be really careful with that. Mitochondria plays a big role, but so does potential yeast overgrowth. I mean, there's a lot of connection between Candida overgrowth and cancer. So I believe it's detoxification. I believe it's a lack of movement of the body. I believe it's pesticides. I believe it's heavy metals. So our job is to remove those toxicities in every form and rebuild the deficiencies. And if you do that, I know easier said than done, but you can do it. And if you do that, you give your body everything that it needs to fight the cancer cells on its own, to create apoptosis, just like you were talking about in your video. I mean, all of those things matter, and that's why it's never one thing. There'll never be a silver bullet to cancer, and there'll never be a silver bullet to overall good health. It's detoxifying the body, it's energizing it with life, it's eating good, healthy foods, and that will never go out of style. That's the best thing.
The only problem is that it's harder to do all that stuff. People just want like a cancer vaccine and just ensure I'll never get it.
That is true. And it's funny because that cancer vaccine will probably cause cancer.
I know, probably, right? You know, it's interesting. I was reading something recently where they said on average, the average person, if they live into their late 70s or early 80s, will have about 4 bouts of cancer in their life and not even know it, you know? And a lot of times when they do autopsies of patients or people who have been killed maybe in car crashes or things like that, they might be riddled with cancer and they don't even know it. And what's interesting is, like, if, you know, this other doctor was on our show and he was saying, because of that stat, the most dangerous time is if you get diagnosed, because then your fight or flight response goes up, your cortisol levels rise, stress begins to happen, and potential spreading of cells, and then you're looking at treatments and things. And, it's interesting that, our body gets on top of this stuff naturally, as long as we provide the right environments, right?
Without a doubt. And then we don't let it go too far.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm the biggest believer that stress is one of the number one things that causes cancer. Now, does it cause it directly? Never causes it directly. What happens, though, is that when you are under a great amount of stress, great emotional distress, your natural immune response becomes lowered, because when you're in the fight or flight, you naturally lower immune cells and natural killer cells, and you lower secretory IgA. You leave your body more susceptible. And as we do know, there are cancer cells forming in our body all the time. But when your immune system is balanced, it kills those things. It kills those things as we fast. It kills those as we get enough vitamin D, and our vitamin D levels are optimized. We have enough vitamin C. We detox. So, it's never one thing. And that's the de-stress protocol I went back to. It's diet, it's exercise, it's stress reduction, it's toxin removal, it's rest, emotional balance, supplements, and success mindset. And success mindset simply means that whatever I come up against, I'm going to be able to overcome it. That's it. And it's that famous quote by Dr. Emile Coué that goes, "Every day in every way, I'm getting better and better. Every day in every way, I'm getting better and better." It's my favorite mantra to give people. You don't have to worry about what you're getting better from. It's just you're getting better. And that's it. So that will help people tremendously, I believe, in life.
Yeah, that's a big one, isn't it? Because a lot of people today, they're just worried that they have a gene and they're somehow defective, or they're worried about some little symptom. And, there's so much, especially in the natural health, like you hear about cancer rates rising, leukemia because of 5G and all these glyphosate connections to cancer, and like all these things, you're just learning, bombarded with what causes disease. And so anytime someone has like a little illness in their, or a little symptom, I should say, in their body, I think their mind just goes crazy, like, oh, I've got this thing. But I like what you said, because it's almost like unraveling what culture tries to put on us, which is our genes cause our genetic destiny. I've got this symptom, therefore I've got this issue. And so really restructuring and reframing how your mind works. That I like what you said there about the success principles. That's really important.
I think it's so much more powerful than diet. I mean, I really do. Although, I used to be the biggest, I would say we need to fix keep that diet right on point. Now I realize that although diet extremely important, I'm not saying that. Mm-hmm. If you're so stressed that you're eating the wrong things, that in itself is a huge stressor, and actually it will do far more harm than good. So for me in my practice, I understand that no one's going to be able to be perfect, but if you could be 80% perfect, 90% of all of the de-stress protocol, you're going to do so much better. And that gives you just a little bit of an out. Like, listen, I was out with friends and I had this food that I wasn't supposed to eat. I say, no big deal. Get right back on track that next meal, learn from it. How could you have done better? If you couldn't, it's okay. You got to relax that central nervous system. If you are always in fight or flight, you are never going to be able to heal that body. So get out of fight or flight and begin to heal, begin to enjoy the process and the journey. We're not all perfect. Things are going to happen in life, but I'm telling you right now, everything that I've seen is able to be overcome. I mean, name an illness, you will find a person who's overcome it. So why can't you? That's how I look at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so important, I think, for us to have that, because I was from 2003 to 2010, I was kind of on a 100% raw vegan diet, completely strict, and and I found myself being very neurotic and I was just really unbalanced, but I really wanted to stick to this diet, almost sort of like a rebounding of, the sad diet from culture. But, and so the thought of eating like a piece of pizza during that time or a hamburger during that time was just there's no way I could have even conceived of that. But, like you said, right now, I'm a lot more relaxed with my diet. I'm pretty much on point, like 90% of the time, 95% of the time, but, on Friday nights, Kate and I have an organic pizza, my wife, and we have this grass-fed cheese on it. It's all organic. And, we take some enzymes with it, and just bless it and are happy and thankful. And, you got to be more like that, I think, right?
Absolutely. You don't want to look back, at the end of your life and just say oh, I missed all of these opportunities to spend time with family and friends and at events because I was too worried about X and just fill out whatever it was. Like, it could be anything. And I think that's really important, because when I look at the longest lived cultures, they did eat well, for sure, no doubt about it. But they enjoyed life. I mean, or they really tried to enjoy life, and they got into a good rhythm and routine. And I think a lot of times that is what we lack. And so the more that I practice, the more people I see, the only people who don't get well are the ones who hold on to a lot of anger, who hold on to a lot of anxiety and overwhelm, and they can't let go. Everyone else heals. I'm telling you right now, and you can name it, like two exact same people, one person that lets go and they believe and they're willing to what's called suspend disbelief, and they heal. And the other people who said, I've already tried it all, I've already done it all, I'm never going to get well, this is everyone in my family's always had this, they don't get well. And it's too bad, because they really could get well.
That's interesting. So somehow holding on to anger is an issue for people.
And we can look at it. We know, because it spikes norepinephrine, it spikes cortisol, it spikes dopamine, and it decreases serotonin. It's going to wipe out your B vitamins. It's going to wipe out your vitamin C. It's going to wipe out your glutamine, going to wipe out your magnesium, and you're going to be stuck. You're going to be stuck in a perpetual cycle of feeling ill, and your psychology affects your physiology. So we know our physiology affects our psychology. When our gut's not feeling well, our gut-brain axis, which is connected to the vagus nerve as well as other nerves as too, tells our mind that something's off, and we don't feel well. We feel anxious too. Well, if our brain is always saying, I'm not well and I'm not happy, it shuts down our digestion. And if food starts to ferment in our stomach and we don't absorb it very well, that affects our health. So, there's real science behind this. And that is why we do need to work on mind, body, and mind has to have a place in medicine, because there's great research behind that as well. We need both to be balanced.
Yeah, isn't it interesting when you look at people like Warren Buffett or Charlie Munger, some of these big financial titans, these billionaires, and they stop and get McDonald's every day before work, and they just eat the most horrible food, but somehow they love what they're doing, their work, they're passionate about it, and they're just healthy as an ox. It's crazy.
It is crazy. And I'm wondering, though, if we're going to see that same thing 50 years from now, like the next generation. And the reason is that they were born before 1960. And I'm just wondering if it has a lot to do with childhood-based toxins that we're all exposed to.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's a different environment.
They started off life with, exactly. And they started off life, their environment was very different, meaning that they just didn't have all the chemicals. I mean, they didn't even have TV. So... it was just different. But I agree. I really believe that if you are in a good place, and they also have these rhythms and routines that allow their body to know what's coming next, so you create the enzymes to actually be able to digest that food, and that, I think that there's something to be said for that, and it does matter. But at the same time, don't think that you are the Warren Buffett and you can eat the orange creamsicles and the McDonald's. Err on the side of caution. Try to eat well. Try to eat a predominantly plant-based diet, and follow those anti-cancer foods, and I think you'll be a lot better off.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. I always wonder about people like that who basically trash their bodies, their whole life. My wife's grandpa, he lives next door to us, and he's 96, I think, and he is just going strong, and he's never, he's just always eaten whatever he wanted to. And so I often wonder with people like that, like, what if they were kind of like Jack LaLanne and they had taken care of their bodies their whole life? Like, you could almost be a 96-year-old that just is like just running laps around people. I mean, that's the potential, right?
I think we will see that. I think this generation right now, and I hope that I'm part of that, when you are in your 80s or 90s, I believe that you could have a very different life. And it's going to be stark contrast. Right now, I have 80-year-olds in my practice. We've optimized their bodies. They're doing amazing. Like, they're still skiing and doing things that even tell them they probably shouldn't do, like ski.
Oh my gosh,
because you could hit a patch of ice. But they're amazing. I mean, they still are running businesses, and they are sitting on the boards of companies. So I think that's just of what's to come. I think instead of being 80 doing that, I think you'll be able to do that until late 90s, which is not heard of right now. Like that's like a purple elephant if you can do that now. But I believe that 50, 60 years from now, when I don't know how old you are, but when at least when I get there, I think that I think that that's going to be a reality 60 years from now for me. I hope that that's a reality.
Yeah, that'd be really cool, wouldn't it? That'd be great.
Yeah, and I think we will. I mean, David Sinclair, looking at resveratrol, nicotinamide riboside, looking at natural forms of metformin. I don't believe in all these drug-based forms, but I believe that we're going to be able to do a lot of great work. And as long as we don't dive too fast into the deep end and that we learn a little bit more about this and how it can deplete other areas of our body, I believe that there's a lot of human potential with stem cells, et cetera, and we're going to be able to do some great things.
Yeah, that would be really, really cool. Dale in the chat room is curious about your thoughts about celery juice in relation to detox. There's, obviously the big celery juice craze. We had Anthony on our show a few years back before he got kind of really famous. And, for the celery juice thing, some people say it has too much NPK fertilizer, coming in, inorganic minerals. But, people that are doing the cleanse seem to really love it. What are your thoughts about that?
So I love Anthony. I think he's great. I really do. Very, very smart guy and very well read. I mean, very well read. I've spoken with him before. But I don't believe that you should be doing celery juice at that high a dose for that long.
Okay.
A week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe. But I also say, what if you did carrot juice? Or what if you did an alkalizing vitamin C water first thing rather than celery juice? Would you get the same effects? That's my question, because we know it's in celery. We know there's a lot of potassium, and that could be very, very beneficial, right? So what if you did something like a blackstrap molasses in some hot water every morning? So there are other ways to look at this. Also, if you have a birch-based allergy or you have an issue with nitrates, I did a whole podcast on celery juicing and the pros and cons, because there are pros to it. People are also getting a lot more hydration in, and it's also what you're not taking in. So, if you're not doing breakfast sandwiches every morning and you're not doing cereal and that matters too.
Right.
And it's lower protein, and people with psoriasis and eczema have a lot of issues breaking down proteins because of weak stomach acid and intestinal permeability. So if you're not taking those in, and because you're not doing just celery juice, typically you're doing, his plant-based diet on top of it, are you getting the benefits from that? So either way, here's the thing. I don't have a problem with it. I would just not do it forever and at 16 ounces a day. And I always say, just start at a couple ounces and then work your way up if you want. So again, I have nothing against it. I just don't want people to think that they can cure cancer with celery juice.
Yeah.
I would hate that for that to be the message.
Yeah, I hear you. Because like you said, it's a multifaceted approach, right? It's not just one thing. There's not one cause, and there's not one sort of, I don't want to say the C word, but there's not one way to reverse things either, right?
Absolutely. And, with Anthony saying that it can help build up stomach acid because of the sodium as well, I agree with that. I'm in agreement with it. So that's why I don't have a big issue with it. I just don't want it to be a panacea. Magnesium is close to a panacea as you can get.
Yeah.
Same with CBD oil, but it's not, there's still more to it than just taking magnesium. It's just that's not the end all be all either.
Right.
So celery juice, magnesium, zinc, these things are all great. Vitamin C, but no one replaces another. They're all different.
For those that are listening on the podcast version, you are listening to Dr. Stephen Cabral, and his website is stephencabral.com. And we'll put links to that at extremehealthradio.com/626. And I want to ask you about your podcast, because I'm interested in that. But before that, I wanted to sort of bring up, in case people are listening, I know when I listen to podcasts, I'm always interested in the people that are talking. And it says here on your bio that you work with digestion, immune issues, for people's energy, their metabolism and hormones, mood, which is anxiety and depression, sleep issues, cardiovascular health and heart, pain, children, anti-aging, and then weight loss, skin conditions, and also autism, ADD, ADHD, learning disabilities. And the last one you have listed here is unknown and hard to treat health issues, which is really, really cool, which is happening a lot these days, because a lot of people just, they run from doctor to doctor to doctor. And especially if you're in the medical field, you're going to be getting a lot of tests that aren't necessarily accurate, like we kind of mentioned at the beginning of the show. So, people are spending thousands of dollars trying to get to the root cause of some of these things. And so you work with people on all of these issues. Do people need to come in physically to see you, or do you do remote sessions with people, or how does that work?
It's a completely virtual-based practice now. So I had a wellness-based center For quite some time. It opened in 2011 when I left an integrative health practice that I was a part of to open up a very large wellness center that had sauna and personal training and manual lymph drainage and Ayurvedic massage. It was beautiful. I mean, I loved it. But what happened is that we saw 20,000 appointments a year, and it was a massive practice, and I loved it. But our goal was not to just see 20,000 people a year. We wanted to help as many people as we could. And I'm sure, with your show that you're helping now more than 20,000 people just on one show.
Yeah.
So that's how I looked at it. And so I started a podcast in 2016. And I then said, you know what, my team and I are going to go virtual so that we can help people all around the world. So that's what we do. So all of the labs now and all of the nutritional supplement protocols, those types of things, are all now open source. They're at equilibriumnutrition.com.
Oh,
and
cool.
instead of you having to go to your doctor, you can actually get these. That's what my goal was, to open source these. That's how I got well. I learned about these more than 15 years ago. My doctor showed them to me. Now I'm just trying to pay it forward and give people the ability to look at their vitamin levels, their mineral levels, their omega-3s, their parasites and H. pylori and all those things. And we ship those to almost 30 countries all around the world.
Now that is really cool. So you said it was equilibriumnutrition.com?
Yes, that's our virtual practice right now. I mean, everything can kind of be got to through StephenCabral.com. But that's the, people were interested in learning more about functional medicine. And I always tell people that you can work with a local integrative health practitioner or functional medicine doctor, if that's the right decision for you, if you want to work locally, or you can work with myself and my team just by essentially purchasing a lab right through equilibriumnutrition.com. These are the same labs that you would get with your doctor.
So that's really cool. So for those that are on the YouTube watching live, I brought up his website, Equilibrium. Is this your website or is it one you're connected with?
I'm the founder of this company, but I would be remiss if I didn't say I had a team of over 25 people making this happen every day. I'm the person that oversees it, but I'm not the guy behind the website.
Okay, cool. So someone could go on here or go to your website first and start working with you, and then they can get some testing done, and then you would consult with them on the results of the test?
Exactly. So what we do is their urine tests or hair or saliva or a blood spot where you just prick your finger, and it enables you not to have to go see a phlebotomist. Now, again, I don't have a problem with that. You should still see your PCP and get your your cholesterol and your CBC done every year. But these labs will look at the underlying root causes of why you're not feeling well, why you're not balanced. And again, they're shipped all over the world. What happens is we ship you the lab, you ship it back to the lab, and I sign off on it. And you just get on a Skype call. I read over your lab. I give my recommendations for your personalized wellness-based plan. You talk with one of our integrative health practitioners. We give you that protocol and enable you to rebalance your body, take out those toxicities and rebuild the new deficiencies. And we recommend everything. I mean, so yes, we have our own Equilibrium line that we use for functional medicine, but we'll recommend, rebounders, we'll recommend saunas, we recommend, heavy metal based detoxes outside of our own. So what we're trying to do is a lot like you're doing, is just try to lift the functional medicine and health industry in general. These are labs by all sorts of different companies. We don't own the lab companies. We just open source it and get it to you.
That's cool. That's cool. I'm looking at here, for those that are listening on the podcast version, I'll just read through some of these testings that you could get done here. Organic acids test, a food sensitivity test. You've got thyroid and hormone test, a mini with a consultation, a hair mineral analysis test, which is interesting, a stool test with a 30-minute consultation, adrenal hormone, mold toxicity in general. So this is a lot of really cool stuff that you have. So that's really cool. So people can just work with you this way. Do they have to set up a consultation with you first and then go to this site, or can they, where do they start first?
The less expensive option is to purchase the test, and it already comes with my review and a call with the health coach.
Oh, cool.
If the lab test is a bundle and it contains more than 2 labs, you get an hour consult instead of a half hour, which is kind of nice with that. You can enter the private practice, which is 3 consultations, 1 with myself or a health coach, which is an intake, a full intake as if you would do with your doctor, which we are providing. That's over Skype. And then the second one would be reviewing your lab results. And the third would be then furthering that program to make sure that we follow up and we make any necessary changes. So that's kind of like, that's the real concierge level. But for most people, they're going to be able to run a lab and really find out what, you know, what are their omega-6 to omega-3 levels? Do they have heavy metals? And a lot of people say like, oh, I don't believe in toxins. Well, I can assure you, after running an environmental toxicity test, you will believe in toxins. Because you will see the different, you know, PCBs and bisphenol, like you'll see everything there. And again, if you don't have it, great. It will show that you don't have it. These are independent labs. I mean, these are true CLIA independent labs that we have no affiliation with, except that I sign off in the lab as the doctor, and that we ship the lab to you, because you still need a doctor to sign off in these labs. That's you know, part of it as well.
Yeah, so fascinating. So with your podcast, is that available at stephencabral.com, or how do people find your show, and what's the format of your show?
My show is a solo podcast, and it is 7 days a week. So I talk on all topics: health, wellness, mindset, and to basically that de-stress protocol, the diet, the exercise, stress reduction, toxin removal. And then on the weekends, I answer the community's questions. So basically I call it the house calls, and I answer those. And my podcast is called The Cabral Concept. It's on iTunes, and it's at stephencabral.com/podcast. And it's a lot of fun. I love it. I've been doing it now for a little over 3 years and going strong.
Wow. How many episodes do you have?
Let's see. I'm recording episode 1325 today, I think.
Oh my gosh, 1300 episodes. How long do they normally run?
They're about 20 minutes, 25 minutes.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's incredible. 1300 shows. That's amazing.
I just sit here and in my office and rant for 20 minutes on a given topic. And no, but I mean, I actually take like, here's what's going on in clinical practice. Here's what people come in with. Here are the reasons why. Like, for example, if your thyroid's in balance, well, is it the chlorine that you're taking in that's depleting your iodine and selenium? Like, we go over that, and we give you, it's always action steps. So it's not just, you know, like, I love natural health, but sometimes it's like scaring people. And so what we always say is, listen, this is what could be going on. Here's the symptoms. Here's a lab test you can run. Here's how to fix it if you don't want to do the lab test. So we just try to give people real action that they can take. I mean, that they can take action on. That they can get well with.
Man, they should be teaching this stuff in school. Wonder why they don't.
It would be great. Right now, all of it's postdoctoral. You do it all after. Like, if you're a doctor, you just do it afterwards. We certify a lot of doctors in what we do right now. We've just started doing that, and that's been a tremendous amount of fun. I mean, wow. You can't talk to everybody. So like, if we could teach more people, and they could teach more people, how great would that be? So that's kind of our next evolution of what we're trying to do for people.
And you know what's cool about, you know, the time that we live in? It's like, you know, that famous quote, we live in the best of times and the worst of times, you know, and it's so true. But what's so cool is that, yes, there are so many assaults coming at us from different angles and different toxicities and things. But what's awesome is that we have these really amazing protocols. You know, you just don't hear about them on the mainstream news. You don't hear about them maybe in textbooks themselves, but we have so many options for healing these days that, you know, education is super, super important. Like Jim Rohn says, we don't need inspiration, we need education. You know, education is where it's at, and that's the goal of both of our podcasts. And if you know you have options, then all of a sudden a diagnosis or a doctor saying that you have this and you must take this medication, it becomes a lot less fearful, doesn't it?
You're exactly right. I mean, that's no truer words could be spoken right there. Is you might need inspiration only to get the education, because the answers are out there. Like, I mean, they honestly are. I'm sure that if someone did a search on my podcast page or your podcast page, they would find an expert or a topic that walked them through at least the initial steps of what could be wrong. And then after that, they could meet with the doctor or the health coach, or they could run the lab test or whatever you need to do. I mean, I was learning, like, the way that I found my mentor was that I read a ton of books. Thousands of books. I was just trying to get well. All of a sudden, I stumbled upon a book that made a lot of sense to me. I contacted that author. I took a bus 3 hours to Maine. I met with that doctor. Wow. That changed my life. What did they do? Well, they started running advanced lab tests with me. They started giving me, it's hilarious, but they started giving me vitamin B6 and magnesium. It was a game changer right away. Within 6 weeks, I was feeling better. So it's like, you never know. It's just like the only reason you haven't found out your answer yet is simply a lack of education. And I don't say that in a mean way, when I say that, like, even for us, the only reason we haven't figured out why everyone can't live to 120s is a lack of education. We just need more education. So we all lack it somewhere. I didn't know how to do a podcast 3 years ago. I hired a podcast coach. They taught me, hey, use this software. Don't do this. I made these mistakes. So you're just trying to save yourself from the mistakes. So I'm telling you right now is like, when you get fed up, and as they say, sick and tired of being sick and tired, it's out there for you. Just keep on searching. Don't give up.
Well, Doc, I appreciate your words, for helping people in the work that you do. So thanks for being on and sharing your journey and the way you're working with people. I really appreciate your time today.
It's been a lot of fun. It's my pleasure. And I appreciate everything you're doing for the health community. It's amazing.
Thanks, Doc. Well, if you guys are interested in learning more about Dr. Stephen Cabral, just go to StephenCabral.com. That's STEPHEN Cabral, CABRAL.com. You can find his websites, his podcasts, and all that good stuff on there. And we'll put links to his site on extremehealthradio.com/626, and you guys can check that out. So, Doc, we'll hang up, but I'll be in touch via email. I'll send you the links to this and all that good stuff. Thank you again for your time today. I really appreciate this.
Amazing. Same here. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Doc.
Take care.
Okay. Bye. All right, guys. So there you go, Dr. Stephen Cabral. I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. What a cool guy. And yeah, a lot of cool stuff. I wanted to share with you some things too that I came across a really interesting article recently about Oprah Winfrey. So I want to share that with you, but I want to do a quick little break here really quickly. So when we get back, I'm curious what you guys think about the show in the YouTube chat, and we'll be back right after this.
We hope you're enjoying this episode. Thanks for being on this health journey with us, and don't forget to check out biochargeme.com for hundreds of health products to build a better you.
Yeah, guys, that's where we just sort of been making some upgrades to our store. And if you guys are looking for the tools, some products, some really great stuff that we've been working on, curating natural products, check out biocharge.me. And you can find out more about that at biocharge.me on our store. And we're always adding. So if you want to support our work and get some really awesome products, we've kind of made some upgrades to the store recently. So make sure to check that out. And we've got some really interesting. This is our Dr. Stuart Nunley, and he is our biological dentist, and he's in Marble Falls, Texas. And he talks about the sauna, and he overcame some really threatening diseases in his own life with high-dose vitamin C and sauna therapy. So check out what he has to say about that.
You know what I chose to do? I chose to go very slow as a detox. So one of the things that I did is I invested in an infrared sauna, which was huge. That was a big part of my healing because, interestingly enough, many times patients who have heavy metal toxicity lose the ability to sweat. And so I was one of those. I could not break a sweat. And the infrared sauna helped me to retrain my body to be able to sweat. It was a huge part of my overall detox.
Doesn't Hal Huggins, Dr. Huggins, say as long as there's more going out than what's coming in, you're okay?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think he's right. I think he's absolutely right on that.
Yeah, so we love the Relax Far Infrared Sauna, but there's a lot of really great saunas on the market today, and we've recently added a few of those to our store. One is from Promo Life, and this is a really fancy one. This is the one that allows you to actually do an ozone steam and bring in ozone while you're doing your sweating. It's really expensive, though, so I wouldn't recommend it if you're just looking to sort of break the ground and get in on these saunas, because it's about, gosh, it's almost $5,000. But if you're in dire straits and you want to learn how to use an ozone generator while you're sweating, this thing is really cool. It's from Promo Life, and you sit in there and you have an ozonated tank, and you can flood your body with ozone. It's tremendous, as well as we have the Clear Light sauna as well, the wooden ones. That's available in our store. But if you guys are interested in a portable sauna, which is the one that we like and use, it's the Relax Far Infrared sauna. That one is the cheapest one, but in my opinion, the best one. This is one I use almost every single day to sweat, and it's just a tremendous piece of equipment, and I cannot recommend this highly enough. stuff, the relaxed far infrared sauna. And what's cool about it too is that you can actually watch a documentary, or you can watch a movie while you're sitting in the saunas, and I love that. So it's really a tremendous machine, and to helping to increase heat shock proteins, to increase your immune system, both arms of the immune system, getting rid of toxins and heavy metals that are in your fat cells. It's just a tremendous piece of equipment. And check out what Dr. Christopher Shade had to say about that.
How do I detoxify from plastics? I mean, you guys are using...
Whoops, here we go.
How do I detoxify from plastics? I mean, you guys are using a sauna, and that's something I'd like to get. And what does a sauna do for us? A sauna is great. It's moving a number of different toxins. Remember, we talked about the mice, that if you put PCBs in there, then that made the mercury all that much worse. And sweating moves out a lot of plastics, volatiles, fat-based toxins. It's really good at moving those out and sweating those out. So that's how you're getting those out, and those are contributing to this synergistic soup inside the body. And so that's why they're good, is they're taking out a bunch of the different things in the soup.
A bunch of different things in the soup. I love that. It's so true, though. If you guys are interested in bringing some of the sauna therapy, I really recommend it, because it's great to sort of bring these things into your home and turn your home into like a wellness sort of space, where your home is a place of healing. It's a sanctuary of healing, and investing in these different tools allows you to bring more of these healing modalities and things into your life. And so I really recommend that a lot. And I think it's just a tremendous way to help have some alone time, and to really watch something fun and get out of your head and have some time away from the husband, the wife, the kids, and get some of that healing time in the parasympathetic way, and just enjoy yourself. Sauna therapy has been used for centuries, and it's one of my favorite ways to detoxify. Finally, I wanted to tell you guys about these green wave filters, and we've done a number of shows about the issues with dirty electricity. And dirty electricity has been shown, according to Magda Havas, to alter blood sugar levels. And what happens is, now that we have 5G, the 5G is actually jumping onto the dirty electricity in your wall. So we had Brian Hoyer come out to our house a while back and do a home EMF assessment, and that's available. If you guys are interested, at biochargeme.com, you can hire Brian Hoyer. If you go to the EMF section of the store, he'll come out to your house and with $30,000 worth of equipment, and he'll do a whole home assessment and give you recommendations. But the dirty electricity in the walls is it's unbelievable. And I think it has a lot to do with our genetic expression, and it's changing the voltage-gated calcium ion channels of the cell, which is allowing the cells to sort of open up, and the calcium, interstitial calcium from the blood serum gets inside the cell, and it's just causing all manner of issues. And so a way to knock out the dirty electricity in your walls is with something like these green wave filters, and you can plug them in, and you can get this little meter here, and you'd be shocked by how much the dirty electricity actually diminishes after plugging these things into your wall. So if you have a bedroom next to your bed, or some plugs next to your bed, or some next to your kids, if your kids are having problems sleeping, I can't recommend these highly enough, just because of what they can do to knock back all of that dirty electricity. And they have 3-prong and 2-prong standards, and they also come with a plug on the bottom, so you're not going to lose a plug. And this is one of the assaults on our immune system, is this dirty electricity. And it's really a factor, and every wall, unfortunately, has dirty electricity in it, unless it's been built by like a building biologist who really understands what this stuff does to the blood and to the body. So this is one of the assaults, is you don't even think about it, is that your own walls, if you tested it, are just screaming with dirty electricity. So I like these things. The green wave, it's ones that we recommend, and I think that they're the best ones on the market for a number of different reasons. And you can get this little piece of equipment here, this meter, and you can test before and after the dirty electricity in your wall. So if you're looking to improve your sleep, maybe the room of your child or where your dog sleeps, you might consider getting some of these green wave dirty electricity filters. So yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed that show. I'm going to check the chat room and see what you guys have to say about all of this good stuff. Big Fat Mama says she's really busy at work. Buffered magnesium. Sorry, Big Fat Mama, I wasn't able to ask your question there. Angie says, these are the kinds of things I like to do. I've been to the doctor about 4 times in my life. I just don't want to end up there. I agree with you there. No one wants to end up in a doctor's office or a hospital, right? It's like the one place you want to get away from as much as you possibly can. Stephen says, has Stephen come across GCMAF cancer treatment? That would have been a good question, Stephen. I forgot to ask Dr. Cabral that, so that would have been good. GCMAF is, remember when all those naturopathic doctors were showing up dead, laying face down on the side of a river and people saying it was suicide? Well, they're doing some work, most of them, on this GCMAF cancer enzyme and its relationship to the body's ability to overcome cancer. And that's why I think some of these naturopathic doctors were being picked off. So this is really, really an interesting way of looking at cancer, GCMAF cancer treatment. So you might want to look that up. Yeah, so Susan, you did miss him, but the replay will be available on YouTube in just a few minutes. And I hope you guys enjoyed that show. If you liked what we're doing, please share it with your friends. Pass on this link to anybody who you think might find this show interesting. We really appreciate it. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram as well. That's how we like to connect with everyone. And I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Thanks for your support on biocharge.me for all of your health products and thinking about us, and also for going through our Amazon link on the homepage of Extreme Health Radio. We really appreciate you remembering to do that. And whenever you purchase on Amazon, if you can think of us and go through our link, that would be really cool and helpful. Supports the work that we do. So we really appreciate that a lot. On Wednesday, we have Ken Rolla. So Wednesday is kind of an open show day. So we're going to basically be committing to Mondays and Fridays. And then Wednesdays, if it works out, we possibly will do a show Wednesdays at 10:45 Pacific time. So unfortunately, we had to reschedule Ken because of audio issues. So I think we have the audio issues figured out. Fingers crossed to the audio gods. And so we're going to do a show on EMF. And we just did a whole 2-hour, it was actually 2.5 hours inside our Extreme Health Academy, where we went through slideshow presentations with specific protocols and products of how to overcome dirty electricity, Wi-Fi, 5G, wireless radiation, smartphones, smart meters, all these types of things in your life. And so that was a really eye-opening workshop that we did inside the Extreme Health Academy. So if you guys want to check that out, that'll be in the Academy any day now. We're working on producing that. So go to extremehealthacademy.com and enter the code EHR14, and you'll get a free 14-day trial, and you can join us in the chat rooms, in the forums, and all that good stuff. So love you guys so much. Thank you again for joining us, and we appreciate all of you so much. And we'll be back on Wednesday at 10:45 with Ken Rolla talking about 5G. Love you all, and we will catch you guys on the next episode.
No material on this blog is intended to suggest that you should not seek professional medical care. Always work with qualified medical professionals, even if you educate yourself in the field of live food, nutrition, and alternative medicine. I'm not a doctor, nor am I offering readers medical advice of any kind. None of the information offered here should be interpreted as a diagnosis of any disease, nor an attempt to treat or prevent any disease or condition. While information in this blog is discussed in the context of numerous conditions, it can be dangerous to take action based on any information in this blog or to start any health program without first consulting a health professional. The content found here is for informational purposes only and is in no way intended as medical advice, as a substitute for medical counseling, or as a treatment/cure for any disease or health condition, and nor should it be continued as such. Always work with a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to your diet, prescription drug use, lifestyle, or exercise activities. This information is provided as is, and the reader/viewer assumes all risks from the use, non-use, or misuse of this information.